Runners, stop training like bodybuilders. I'm going to be giving you the 10 best exercises to improve your strength, your fitness, and become a more efficient runner. Let's get into it. Whether you are training for high rocks, marathons, OCRs, or running is just part of your sport, like football or rugby, then this is for you. No matter why you're running or where you're running, strength training correctly will improve your running efficiency and reduce the risk of injury. The muscular demands of running are huge. At slow speeds, your quads, your glute medius, and your soleus work the hardest, handling forces of 2.7, 4, and 6.6 times your body weight per stride. Whereas at faster speeds, the demand shifts to the rec fem, the hamstrings, the glute max, and the psoas, absorbing forces up to 9 times your body weight. That's some serious force that your body has to withstand. So for me, at 90 kilos, when I go for an easy paced run, that means my lower limbs have to absorb 594 newtons per stride. And at faster speeds, the quads, the hips have to take on over 800 newtons of forces per step. This is why it's so important to train those big, strong, powerful muscles around your hips and knees, but also those smaller muscle groups as well to prevent injury. Take shin splints for an example. Very, very common at slow speeds, and that's because the demands of slow speeds load the lower limbs. And anyone that ever does a hamstring, it's because they're sprinting. Their body has to withstand those high forces. If your hamstrings ain't resilient and strong enough, the hammy's gonna go. There are a ton of ways to improve and train for running performance: strength, balance, stability, power, control, tendon stiffness, elasticity, and much, much more. So let's break it down into 3 main areas of running, and I'm going to give you a few exercises for each one. So first up is running economy and efficiency. So this is all about how well you run, your movement efficiency, reducing energy waste, and improving running form. The more efficient you are, the less energy you have to waste in each stride, meaning you can run faster and longer with the same amount of effort. The first key exercise for this is all about single leg stability and neuromuscular control, and that exercise is the runner's clamp. Grab a booty band, wrap it around your knees. Get into your Bulgarian split squat stance and lean over to the point where the hamstring stretches. And then from here, you're going to externally rotate the leg out and back in. Anywhere between 10 and 15 reps per leg with 60-second breaks in between. So as you externally rotate, the band is going to want to pull this knee in. Your job is to try and prevent that. So here we're training the hamstring and the glute medius, which is up here. And on this leg that's dynamically working, you're working the external hip rotators, and I can feel that, and I've only done 5 or 6 reps. So it's important that you're in this stance with that leg slightly behind this one, so that you're in this running mimicking position. The 3 key things here when you're doing this exercise, the first one is to keep your hands on your hips and keep your hips square. If you pull this knee out and rotate your hips, you're losing complete control of what the exercise is intended for. You're getting more range of motion here, and you're not going to feel it in the right muscle groups. So you got to keep the hips square, which is going to shorten the range of motion that you can travel with this knee, and that's fine because now we're targeting those glutes that we want to hit. The second most important thing when you're doing this exercise, have a look at the rear foot. I'm on the ball of my foot. Okay, and that's so that I can pivot off here. You don't want to place that foot here. It's a little bit awkward to pivot. And then the last thing is, if we look at this front leg, when we're hinged here, a lot of people are going to want to bend the knee too much. As soon as you bend that knee too much, you're taking slack off the complete posterior chain, which is defeating the purpose of the exercise. So nice stiff knee, feel the hamstrings, feel the glutes, keep the hips square, and externally rotate. With running efficiency, it's critical to improve running form, and we can do this with tendon stiffness and elasticity. And this is where the Achilles tendon comes into play. There is a reason why this Achilles tendon is so long. It's because it can store so much energy to help you absorb force and then reproduce force and power. Very, very important for when you're running, whether it's slow running or fast running. And one of the best ways to train this Achilles tendon is with pogos. Pogos are great for conditioning the lower limbs and the tendons. We can use them extensively for higher reps where we spend longer ground contact times, or intensively when we focus on springiness and being faster off the floor. You can do them for 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps with 60-second breaks. You can do them on the spots. You can do them moving forward, backwards, and sideways. The key to doing pogos effectively is, as soon as you get air time, lift the toes off the floor. As you touch the floor and jump and lift the toe, this is going to pre-stretch the Achilles tendon so that when you come back down and recoil off the floor, you will have a more powerful spring. Don't point your toes down. As you get airtime, lift the toes up. That can be done on your strength and conditioning lower body day, or it can be done before your runs as part of your warm-up. Running economy is the inverse of the proportion created by the amount of oxygen consumed to maintain a given pace. So that basically means that running economy is more important for you athletes who are taking on middle distances and longer distance durations. Studies even show that longer distance runners use 5 to 10% less oxygen when compared to middle distance runners. So for longer distances, running economy improvements are going to be a big part of your success. So this last exercise for running economy is going to help you reduce energy waste by improving posture and stability. The bird dog row. This is way more challenging than it actually looks. Now, the goal is not to go heavy, right? We want to lock that position down, keep it tidy, keep it controlled, right? You don't want to be moving all over the place. Now, this is a very taxing exercise for the neuromuscular system, and that's because your body is trying to prevent what we call anti-rotation. We're working the transverse abdominis, the obliques, the QLs, the lower back, along with a lot of upper body muscles, right? The back, the lats, the shoulders, the scapular stability. So it's a great exercise because it also is contralateral. We're working one arm and the opposite leg, which mimics your running movement, right? Opposite arm, opposite leg. So it's quite sport specific. So some serious neuromuscular control being trained here. Balance, proprioception, and reflexive stability. Do 8 to 10 reps per side, 3 to 4 rounds with 30 to 60-second breaks in between. Next up, we're moving on to speed and power, which is going to help you with that VO2 max and tempo and threshold running. So we have to focus on improving speed, endurance at high intensities, and overall power output. So we're talking heavy lifts, explosive movements, and plyometrics. So we want to focus on producing a large amount of force in a short possible time, and that's going to be of high technical coordination. Power jerk. When we do that, we want to drop down, have a counter movement, absorb the force of the weight, and then move at the same time, drive back up, and then pop that weight overhead. And the big factor here is we want to stay elastic and we want to coordinate. So as we drive the legs, we transfer the force into the upper and then produce it with the overhead press. You can do 4 sets of 4 or 5 sets of 3, 60 to 120 seconds in between each set. Running requires you to absorb high forces in a unilateral manner, which is why single leg stability and strength is so important. You're basically being asked to absorb all of your body weight and forces through one leg and then have to reproduce force in one leg to get you moving forward. Not only do you need to have strong legs, but you also need to have a strong trunk so that when you're running, you can maintain good posture. And that's where this next exercise comes into play, the Bulgarian split squat. Now this is a great unilateral exercise that can be modified to bias different muscle groups. If we lean over forward, over that front leg, we can target the front glutes. If we stay nice and upright, we can target the front of the quads. And if you want to get fancy with it, you can add a pause or a quarter in that bottom position. As a rule of thumb, aim to reach 0.8 times your body weight for 6 to 8 reps per leg. Now you can use a dumbbell like I just did there, or you can put a barbell on the back of the shoulders. Obviously a barbell, it's more control and stability focused, where this, you can really load it up. You're training the legs, but the upper body's gonna have to work because the weight is trying to pull you over. So you have to push back against that weight, keep the posture in the right position. You can't be afraid of building muscle mass as a runner. Thinking additional weight will slow you down as a runner is a little bit of a myth unless you're training like a bodybuilder. So we can build muscle tissue during our running and our strength training. But the key is to make sure that we do not stop running and that we integrate some speed and power work along with it. So we need to utilize heavy weights, but also fast dynamic movements, such as those plyometrics, and some weightlifting movements, such as the power jerk that we did earlier, some cleans and some snatches. And I'm always banging on about them, but plyometrics, they are a key foundational movement when it comes to strength and conditioning for runners or any athlete alike. In strength and conditioning, we have something called a force velocity curve, and it's crucial for understanding how runners and athletes train for speed, power, and strength and improve athleticism. It basically describes the inverse relationship between force output and speed and velocity. So here we have velocity and here we have force. As force increases, velocity decreases. So this is represented as, say, 1 to 3 rep max squats, where you are moving extremely heavy weight, but you're doing it slowly. And down here could be where those plyometrics are. Plyometrics, jumping, where you're moving light loads, but you're doing them very fast. So here's the velocity and here's the force. So the curve is a continuum of different forces and speeds, and different exercises relate to different parts of this curve. 1 to 3 rep max squats, sort of trap bar deadlifts, heavy bench presses. Down here, we've got a lot of weightlifting movements. You can have strength speed movements, or you can have speed strength movements, and then plyometrics and throws. So as a runner, we need to surf the curve and hit all different aspects of this curve and different exercises so that we can develop and build multiple qualities at the same time. And this is where plyometrics and those heavy ballistic exercises come into play. The next exercise is the trap bar jump. Explosive force production, rate of force development, and lower limb stiffness, all needed to improve your running performance. This is perfect for faster ground reaction forces in running. Distance runners spend approximately 0.25 seconds in ground contact time, while sprinters 0.10 seconds, both extremely fast contact times. And this is where that trap bar is great, because there's a fast contact time onto the floor, which will carry over to a fast foot strike. The load should be 20 to 40% of your 1 rep max, and you should be doing 3 to 5 reps, 3 to 5 sets, with about a minute or 2 in between each set. Focus on maximal jump height and intent. Slow twitch muscle fibers predominate in the muscle tissue of endurance runners, whilst faster runners have muscles that consist mostly of fast twitch muscle fibers. If you are a middle distance athlete or a high rocks athlete, you will have predominantly a combination of both, 50% fast and 50% slow twitch muscle fibers. Generally, the bigger the muscle tissue, the more fast twitch muscle fibers you have. If you take a sprinter, for example, big, solid, lots of muscle tissue, marathon runner, smaller and more skinny. The metabolic profile of these muscle fibers are key to understand, because slow twitch muscle fibers contract relatively slowly and are resistant to fatigue, relying mainly on aerobic metabolism for energy supply, whereas fast twitch muscle fibers contract extremely fast rates, so they rely mostly on anaerobic metabolism, and that's where those big, powerful muscle groups come into play. So generally, runners spending most of their training volume at low intensities and slow speeds and getting a lot of kilometers over the week are heavily reliant on those slow twitch muscle fibers and are missing out on some of those benefits of being able to utilize and recruit those fast twitch muscle fibers. Sprint finishes, a strong, powerful stride, running up a steep hill and maintaining pace, or transitioning from a run into a station in high rocks or an OCR event. On my master's in sports science, I had the privilege of learning from world champion coach Steve Magnus, and he taught us that he had his endurance athletes do their long runs, and in those last final 10 minutes of their long easy run, they were told to go as hard as they could. And the reasoning why is because when they're doing those long, slow runs, they are relying on those slow twitch muscle fibers. However, if they go faster and pick up pace, they are then going to have to tap into fast twitch muscle fibers under fatigue. Those fast twitch fibers are somewhat stubborn, and it's going to teach them how to pick up pace towards the back end of the race. That can help them with a sprint finish. And that's the big difference with endurance and middle distance athletes. The best ones are the ones that can go a little bit harder under fatigue, and that's where they learn how to utilize those fast twitch muscle fibers. So this is a reason why you must train heavy, you must train fast, and you must do explosive movements such as plyometrics. So an important factor in running is building and developing your base, getting time on the legs and building that endurance up. And we know that a frequent runner is a good runner, but to be a frequent runner, you have to be injury resilient and fatigue resistant. So the focus here needs to be able to build kilometers in the legs without breaking down and getting injured. So the key qualities are muscular endurance, control, and building robustness. That means higher rep work, isometrics, and eccentric loading. So the first exercise to challenge that high rep work is the calf raise. The calf muscle, soleus, and gastroc play a massive role in everything we have discussed today, especially when it comes to slow speeds and longer distances. They are really going to take a beating, which is why you need to train those bad boys. Now, the soleus handles 6 to 8 times your body weight in ground reaction forces per stride, and that means thousands of strides you take per run. The soleus is just getting absolutely beat up, so you have to make sure that it's nice and strong. Improving that calf strength will also improve the Achilles tendon stiffness, leading to better energy storage and recoil. Think of it like a spring-loaded system for efficient running. And of course, strengthening up those calves is going to help prevent shin splints, Achilles tendon ruptures, and knee pain. 3 sets of 15 to 20 reps on each leg. Focus on the deep stretch and the top tight squeeze. Guys, Achilles injuries, it ranks 3rd behind bone strains and anterior knee pain in terms of frequency with runners, and it becomes increasingly more common as you get older. The first indicator of injury usually occurs first thing in the morning. Once you get out of bed, you put your foot down on the floor and you feel the pain in the Achilles tendon. Now, tendons, especially that Achilles tendon, they generally have poor blood supply, which doesn't help them with getting injured or recovery, which is why throughout the day, they feel like they get a little bit better once you get movement through it. 2 to 6 centimeters above insertion of the heel bone is where Achilles issues arise. Achilles tendon pain usually comes from using low-heeled shoes or really stiff soles or old shoes that are just worn out. They can also occur from poor biomechanics and running economy, and if you're older, you tend to lose the elasticity in those tendons. So older, weaker, stiffer tendons, maybe from heavy strength training, old age, is going to put more stress through that tendon region. So make sure you strengthen those calves. The next exercise is one of my personal favorites, the Spanish squat. This is elite because it isolates the quads, reinforces proper knee positioning, and reduces strain on those knees, allowing for pain-free strength development. Those quads are placed under huge demands during running at fast speeds. That rec fem that crosses both the knee and hip joint absorbs forces of up to 9 times your body weight. So the Spanish squat locks the shin in place, forcing the quads to do all the work. And it also bulletproofs the patella tendon and the quad tendon. Running is very, very quad dominant, and weak quads will lead to knee pain and tendinopathy in this area. So that Spanish squat is what we call an isometric position, right? We're holding the position and getting tension on the quads. And that constant tension has what we call an analgesic effect on the body, meaning that it can instantly reduce knee pain that can last several hours after the exercise. So great if you have any knee pain at the moment and you need to train or you need to run. So you can do it before you're running and before you're weight training. What you want to do is make sure that you use high tension bands and none of the small stuff, because you have to hold up some of your body mass. Hold it between 30 to 60 seconds, and if it's easy, add some load. The next exercise is a great exercise to strengthen the quadriceps, the hip flexors, and all of those knees tendons. This is the reverse Nordic raise. Every step in running requires eccentric quad control to absorb those forces. And reverse Nordics will help you build resilient and strong quads and tendons to handle those high impact loads. Use a band to deload some of your body mass. I think that is the best way to do it because you can get a deeper, better stretch. Make sure the pelvis is tilted, the core is engaged, and that you're not just leaning back and arching through the lower back, right? We want to keep this all tight and hinge from the knees so we maximize the stretch. So the key here is to go as slowly as you can on the negative, that eccentric movement, because that's going to stimulate lots of tension in those quadriceps. And those slow eccentrics will help increase tendon stiffness, which will lead to less energy loss per stride. I love my athletes to do that on a lower body day or a whole body day. And for any of my athletes that have any tendon or knee issues, we do that after running. So as soon as they're done with their speed work or their long runs or their easy runs, they'll get into the gym, they'll do 3 sets of 3, extremely slow, sort of like 5 to 10 second negatives, and that will help them with their recovery and build more capacity in those tendons. All right, you've made it to the final exercise. Exercise number 10 is chin-ups. Now, chin-ups will strengthen your back, your shoulders, your arms, your biceps, all important muscles for when you're running, and in particular, the bicep muscle, because the bicep muscle is responsible for controlling arm swing, which is essential for maintaining proper form and mechanics, especially in those longer distances. So training the chin-ups and targeting the biceps are good for runners. Chin-ups require trunk control and stabilization, which means you're going to train the abdominals, the obliques, the lower back, the hip flexors, all muscles that help maintain upright posture and control when you're running. Do 3 to 4 sets of anywhere between 4 to 8 reps with 60 to 120 seconds in between sets. And that's it. We've covered everything from strength, plyometrics to elasticity. All essential components to improving running economy, speed, power, and injury resilience. These exercises, when done correctly, will help you run more efficiently, stay strong, and build the explosive power to allow you to reach a new level of performance within your running. Whether you are training for a marathon, a high rocks, an OCR, or any running event or field event that incorporates running, all this stuff together will give you that edge. Guys, thank you so much for watching. And if any of you do want more insider tips, there's a link below. Make sure you subscribe to my email list because I'm always giving out free tips and advice on health and performance, strength and conditioning, really cool things that you can go and apply within your training. Anyway, that's it for today. See you on the next one.